Hello, and a warm welcome to all of our viewers and listeners to another episode of Let's Talk UNRWA. I'm Mara Cronenfeld, the Executive Director of UNRWA USA, and once again, your host for this hour. Earlier this month, our hearts sank as we learned of the devastating events unfolding in Jenin refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. Israeli troops opened fire on the refugee camp, killing at least 8 people, including 5 refugees and 2 children, and wounding over 50 Palestinians. In times of crisis, UNRWA workers are on the ground, tirelessly providing urgent care, vital assistance, and essential services to Palestine refugees. Our Urgent Assistance Fund at UNRWA USA will send your tax-deductible gift wherever Palestine refugees need it most, including to the relief efforts and rebuilding in Jenin underway right now. Please consider giving a contribution today via the link that will appear on your screen below shortly. A quick refresher on our program. Let's Talk UNRWA is a monthly speaker series live streamed on UNRWA USA's social media channels. Our goal is to provide everyone listening with an insider view of UNRWA's work. It's also a unique opportunity to hear directly from UNRWA staff who work in the field and here in the United States. For this episode, we will be shedding light on the current situation in Jenin and UNRWA's role during crises like the one that's been happening in Jenin. We have the honor of speaking with Hanadi Abu Taqa, UNRWA's Chief Area Officer, who will provide an update on the ground on the ground realities and focus on how we can collectively support Palestine refugees in Jenin. I had the pleasure of meeting Hanadi in person during my field visit to the West Bank last year, and so pleased to be able to talk with Hanadi again. So great to see you, Hanadi. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for your excellent service with UNRWA.
Thank you, Myra, and thank you for also hosting me today in this important episode. And really, I'm very happy to be with you. Unfortunately, the circumstances are not the same as when you visit last year. But let's hope for the best, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanadi. And I just want to remind our listeners today that the majority of UNRWA's about 28,000 staff members are actually refugees themselves. Hanadi, would you be willing to tell our viewers about you and your family's refugee story? Where are you from in historic Palestine, and how has UNRWA played a part in your life, both as a child and now?
Okay, thank you, Myra. Actually, my family comes from 2 different places. In 1948, historic Palestine. Part of my family from my dad's side comes from Tiberias, but the other part comes from Jaffa, from my mother's side. In 1948, both families had to fled to Nablus city, which is in the northern part of West Bank. I was actually born and raised in the city, in Nablus city, but I kept hearing the stories from my grandpa and my family about how was it in back those days, where you have the sea, where you have the port, where you have the different life, of course, from West Bank. We also used to benefit from UNRWA support during the time. At different levels, either from the health services or from even educational services as well. Unfortunately, part of my family had to leave to another part or another countries. 2 of my uncles left West Bank to Jordan and to Kuwait. My cousins, my other relatives are actually living in different parts of the world. So although we had this difficult experience, but we keep remembering how important to live and talk about historic Palestine, about UNRWA, about what we did and what we are doing. And then I had the opportunity to receive or to have this post as Chief of Area Office. It was in 2018. Before, I used to work with other UN agencies, but trust me, working with UNRWA is completely different experience, especially that you see what does it mean to be a refugee, what does it mean to be living in a camp, what does it mean to have all these what UNRWA doing to serve a refugee community. So since then until today, I have been working with UNRWA in this position. Unfortunately, the north, in particular in West Bank, actually is considered hot area in terms of security, and this is, I think, what we will be talking about in the coming few minutes. But really, my story is maybe not comparable to other stories of refugees who were living inside the camps and witnessed all the suffering, either in terms of access to basic services, but also in terms of being fled literally to live in camps.
Well, thank you, Hanadi. Thank you. And we're going to get into a little bit about the Jenin refugee camp in particular. So maybe you can share a little bit about the camp, when it was established, and where are the Palestine refugees, or the vast majority of them who live in Jenin camp, where are they originally from?
Yeah. Just to start, the camp was established in 1953. Those majority of refugees living in the camp actually came from Haifa and from the Carmel Mountains in the north of historic Palestine. We're talking about more than 23,000 persons living in less than 0.4 kilometers square, which means that the density of the camp is really very high. We're talking about 56,000 persons living in a square kilometer. So you imagine how densely this camp is. As I said, most of the refugees are coming from different villages around Haifa and around the Carmel Mountains. In 2002, there was a huge or massive operation, which makes the life in the refugee camp very difficult. UNRWA at the time intervened and built a new or established a new camp next to the old camp to provide the services and to better put the refugees at the time in a safe and more suitable place to live in, especially that most of the houses at the 2002 were destroyed as a result of the large-scale operation that took place in the camp.
Thank you. Thank you for that overview. And maybe now just talking a little bit more about UNRWA's specific role in the camp. What kind of services does UNRWA provide in Jenin refugee camp and in the surrounding area in the north where you are working?
Yeah. Just to give you maybe a background, Myra, about the north. We're talking about 45% of the refugees living in the north, either inside or outside the camp at the level of West Bank. We have 7 camps. The largest would be Balata. It's the largest at the level of West Bank. But Jenin also is considered one of the biggest camps in terms of population, not in terms of the size. The normal services provided normally in West Bank is focusing on basic services, health, education, relief and social services, protection, but also sanitation and health, environmental health. We have 4 schools in Jenin that serves around 2,000 students, in addition to a health center which actually serves refugees living inside and outside the camps. We're talking about tens of thousands of refugees who receive primary health care, reproductive health care, of course, immunization, infant and child services, as well as screening and treatment, of course. So this is in terms of the basic services, in addition to our relief and social services that we provide to most needy families in the camp, and those who have issues that require psychosocial support and other services provided through the social services. In terms of sanitation, we have around 20 sanitation laborers who take care of the sewage inside the camp. We are managing the collection of solid waste. We also make sure that we have testing for the water inside the camp and making sure that people have access to clean water. So in terms of protection, We try all the time, whenever there is an operation, to document all the cases of the violation against IHL through our teams, through our crisis intervention units as well, that provides support needed, especially for the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. We have been witnessing lots of incursions and security issues inside Jenin. So we have this kind of support, Mara, in addition, of course, to the emergency related interventions that we will also shed light on during the interview.
Okay, thank you for that overview and sharing with us the comprehensive nature of UNRWA services in the camp. I know so many young people and families rely on UNRWA, as you mentioned, for education, for health, for protection, and mental health support as well, given the trauma that too many have faced over and over again. And unfortunately, turning to that trauma, many of us here in the U.S. saw some very difficult to see images of the recent raid, of streets being destroyed. We know, as we mentioned earlier in the session, that there were a number of people who died and many, many more who were injured. And also, we know that a health center, an UNRWA health center, was at least partially destroyed, and I think a school. Maybe you can tell us about what, the aftermath of the raid, what the conditions are in the camp now, and what are those priorities for rebuilding on UNRWA's side.
Just to let you know, Mara, what you read is really doesn't actually describe well the scene inside the camp. We're talking about, according to Ministry of Health, 12 fatalities amongst Palestinians. 4 of them are children. Most of the killed persons are refugees, either from, of course, the majority are from the camp, but also there are other people who were killed from outside the camp. We're talking about more than 140 injuries. 20 of them are critical and still in the hospitals, suffering from their critical injuries. Also, we're talking about tens of people who were arrested. Now, the drama doesn't end here because, as you said, the destruction inside the camp was really, for me, when I first went to the camp, it was really, how can I say it? The reaction from everyone visited the camp was very hard to see all the destruction inside the camp, the infrastructure, the water, electricity networks, sewage networks, all were destroyed. You can't imagine how difficult for people inside the camp to have access to the services, even for our installations. First, when we went and assessed the situation, we saw, as you mentioned, that the health center was partially damaged. There was airstrike to a building very, very near to our health center, and now we have to close it because it's really unsafe to use the building, and we reallocate our health center outside the camp in a PA school. So this adds also to the traumatic situation of the people. Not only this, what we saw in the second day of the operation, the flight of more than 3,000 refugees from the camp, it meant a lot for the people. When you talk to the people, you can hear their stories, how bad was for them. It brings them back to the Nakba and to the 1948 when they fled originally from historic Palestine, and the traumatic situation, the aftermath, as you said, impact on the children, women, even men, was really very, very huge. If we are talking about education, we opened our school on the 8th of July, on Saturday. Less than 50% of students show up to the schools for different reasons, but mainly because they were afraid to go out of their homes, and also because it was really very risky for them to go to the schools. Although we managed to assess the water and the sewage and the sanitation situation inside the schools, and we agreed that children should resume their normal lives. We wanted basically to make sure that they find safe place inside the schools. We know that they look at their homes as unsafe place, but we try to secure the schools and make sure that they have this feeling of safety We provided them with different psychosocial activities to calm them, make sure that they feel safe, and try to attract them back to the school. Honestly speaking, our teams, Mara, from day one, even during the operations, were working hard inside the camp. They were receiving calls from the community, those who were trapped inside the camp, those even who fled outside the camp. Yani, I can't describe how great our team in Jenin. We're talking about 80 staff who lives in the camp and who were supporting us inside the camp. In addition, we have more than 120 who are working, or even more, 150 who comes from outside the camp. So in total, we were talking about 250 staff who serve the refugees in the camp. Nevertheless, yani, those staff are really, many of them suffered themselves and their families due to the operation. Either their homes were damaged, or they had to flee, similar to other refugees, or they were used as a human shields. The stories in Jenin are really very, very, very long, very sad, and we need really so long. We need to work with them at the long term to make sure that we bring them this feeling of comfort in their lives. In terms of sanitation, we managed also to recruit additional sanitation laborers to support the huge work needed inside the camp. We worked also with our partners. We coordinate with OCHA, other local NGOs, INGOs, to fill in the gaps, because the needs are really very huge and our resources and capacities are limited, are very limited. So OCHA, together with UNICEF, WHO, the municipality, the camp service committee, everyone was involved in the work we are doing now, and we are planning to do in the coming a few months, and I believe a few years, to respond to the what happened in Jenin.
Wow, wow, Hanadi, thank you for this very detailed and I must admit, very difficult to hear description of what went on. You're right, we only see some images, no part of the story. And so one of the key objectives of this program is to share with so many wonderful, compassionate Americans really what's happening on the ground. And to imagine 56,000 people in a very small, I think you said a kilometer square location, being bombarded essentially, and UNRWA, being the primary provider of education and health for this population. You mentioned that about 3,000 fled. Where do they go? What are their temporary shelters like? I know that the conditions are already difficult in the camp, and then outside the camp, there's no place for them to go. Where did they end up, and how many of roughly have come back to the camp?
But you can't imagine. No, in the second day of the operation, we went to the municipality to see, to talk about what could be done, what are the damages, and so on. And we were also keen to know about the 3,000 persons. So what was said to us, all of the families from outside the camp come quickly to the places, public places where those people fled, either hospitals or community centers, and they insist to take them back with them to receive them in their homes. يعني the community was really very supportive. They want to do their part in this situation. They told us they don't need water, they need food. يعني we are overwhelmed from all the parts of West Bank and other communities who provides water and food. They need only protection. They need to go back home. They need to have safe place where they can have their families. So يعني you can't imagine how painful to see them fled, but how positive was يعني to see that everyone from outside was ready to support and provide the needed basic needs for the families, to comfort them and make sure that they feel as if they were in their homes. Hotels were open for free. the support was really tremendous. we I couldn't say more about what we hear and what we saw from the community in Jenin and in West Bank in general.
Wow, wow, wow. I can just imagine the already difficult situation people are living in. They're welcoming those who are fleeing an impossible situation. And also just thinking about those UNRWA employees in Jenin who suffered and were also providing services at the same time. And I think I hope I speak on behalf, I know I speak on behalf of all of our supporters, UNRWA USA's wonderful supporters, people who are watching day in and day out what's going on, just to thank UNRWA and you, Hanadi, and your team in the north area of the West Bank for all your work under the most trying of circumstances. A couple of folks have logged on and added some comments thanking you personally. Marwan Tabara is thanking Hanadi for your work, and he's a proud supporter of UNRWA. Shukran, Marwan. Thank you so much for your support. And it sounds like visiting on a Canadian delegation to the West Bank in 2018. And then a message from Steph Kirby. Hanadi, thank you for sharing the difficult details of what you've witnessed and the support you give to your staff and families, even while you're suffering, as you mentioned. And I really, this was hard to read because I think about my own children, but Steph says, I think about my own 8 and 9-year-olds skipping off to school this morning, getting on their buses. And I can't imagine, and neither can I, Steph, the experiences of children in Jenin trying to go to school, have a normal day, and suffering under a collective punishment. Thank you so much, Hanadi, for sharing this. And thank you to the excellent workers at UNRWA who persevere despite all the challenges that they're faced with. Hanadi, maybe we can turn now to you telling us what are the most urgent needs currently in Jenin. I understand that UNRWA is evaluating the needs, and we at UNRWA USA are taking any contributions to support urgent assistance, and we will be sending a disbursement to support the relief efforts and rebuilding efforts in Jenin. So please, if you're watching this and you are concerned about what you're hearing, which I know you are, please donate. And my colleagues will again share the link you can donate at, and we will be supporting as much as possible the relief efforts in Jenin. So Hanadi, what are the primary concerns right now? What is rebuilding looking like? Where are you needing funds the most?
Honestly speaking, Mara, there are different aspects of needs to consider, but mainly I would think of the tremendous need for psychosocial support, for instance. Why I'm saying that? Because we're talking about the short term, but also of the long term. The majority of the residents of the camp are suffering very bad, severe psychosocial or mental health problems due to the operation. If you are talking about health, there are lots to be done. Considering the damages happening to the health center, we need now to consider building a new location or reallocating the health center to a new place. Make sure that we provide decent health services to our patients, to the refugee community, making sure that also our staff are supported with additional support, additional staff to support them, especially that they have been working under tremendous pressure for the last couple of weeks. If we are talking about RSS, the needs are really very tremendous, either when you talk about cash-based assistance or the damaged houses. There are minor damages, yes, but we have very severe and completely destroyed houses that requires actually our a quick attention. Recently, we managed to secure rent subsidies for more than 24 families, but number of families who need for these subsidies is very high. We are talking about more than 43 houses that are uninhabited now for the time being, and the families had to move to rented houses outside of the camp. When you say minor damages, we're talking about hundreds of houses. So far, we are talking about 1,300 families, Myra, that has been affected, either minor effects or severe, or even their houses were completely damaged. Our teams have been working day and night, no weekends, no Sundays, no Fridays, nothing. Even they were working until late night under really very difficult situation. We don't know what we have on the roads. There are OXOs, unexploded ordnance, in addition to other IDs that actually represents a huge risk. So we are planning to have kind of a community large scale awareness of how to deal with these oxos for the coming days. This also requires lots of support in terms of bringing experts, but also the materials and conducting trainings and so on, capacity building also for our partners. In terms of education, we had also damages to our installations, to the schools. We need يعني desperately to create a kind of safe environment inside the school by doing some kind of preventing measures to the constructions. We don't have safe places, Mara, in our schools. Whenever there is operation, they will be hiding under their desks. Some of the schools really suffered from live ammunition entering to the classrooms while they were in the classrooms. So imagine how difficult the situation is. So the work is really huge. In terms of infrastructure, yes, we don't do much, but we need to make sure that with our partners, electricity, water, sewage networks are back. We need to make sure that the roads are asphalted. We need to make sure that livelihoods who had been demolished or vanished are back, and people are able to provide to their families. And this is something UNRWA always يعني coordinate with different parties. Talking about also the need for maybe, I don't know, يعني this is something we might consider some kind of income generating project, يعني cash for work, because unemployment rate is really very high in the camp. Youth يعني they are very desperate, and children actually in return are facing really unclear future. So we need to make sure that we bring the children back to their childhood. We need to make them believe that there is a future ahead of them. We need to work with their parents. We need to work with the community. We need to build the capacity of the CPOs as well through our different partners, not necessarily through UNRWA, but I encourage the supporters also to consider the community-based organizations inside the camp. Their role is very important. There are youth centers, there are women community-based organizations. We need also to consider maybe safe places for children to play areas, outdoor, indoor. Yani, as I said, it's the list is really very long, Mara. It only requires people who can believe in the need, in the extreme need for UNRWA to be supported, and for the refugees also to consider. Political wise, we don't intervene because this is something beyond our mandate. But advocacy is very important part to shed light on the cases of violations that we saw in the camp, to shed light on the stories that children has been through, mothers, fathers, youth even has been through, our staff has been through. So I think there is a lot to be done, and I really trust our friends in USA and other countries to see the real picture inside the camp, and consider funding for refugees in Jenin and other camps, honestly speaking, but in particular in Jenin.
Hanadi, wow, you have explained in depth the depth again and breadth of the destruction of the kind of relief and rehabilitation that's needed, and I hope brought home to many of our listeners the real human tragedy here of again, a camp, a very small camp that's highly populated, 56,000 people, children in school,
Yeah.
in school learning while live fire is coming into the school, the trauma that children face, the 43 homes that were destroyed, thousands that were damaged, and the ongoing trauma that those children in the schools, those families in the houses, all of those humans who have the same blood as you and me, they're humans like us, are suffering. And we just don't hear enough about what that's like. And you've done so much now, Hanadi, to bring awareness to those in the States. We don't always get the whole picture in our news. And I think it's so important to hear directly from Palestine refugees and those on the ground who are facing what just happened a couple of weeks ago in Jenin. So thank you for sharing this with us. As difficult as it is to hear, I can't imagine what it's like to experience. And Hanadi, like you, to go in just after the raids and start to help people pick up and see what they face and see the trauma in their faces and in the faces of children. So thank you, Alf Shukr, 100,000 thanks for everything that you and your colleagues do. And again, for those listening, UNRWA USA is raising funds right now for relief efforts in Jenin. Please consider contributing to this effort. We have already received funds from many of our wonderful supporters, and will continue to accept funds for support for Jenin rehabilitation. Thank you so much, and to all those who are listening right now. Hanadi, I have a couple more questions for you. You had described, you've described the urgent needs, which, psychosocial support for children and their families, health needs, and you had mentioned RSS, for everyone to know, is relief and social services. One more question in terms of general needs on the ground. In the US right now, some $75 million in food assistance for the West Bank and Gaza for Palestine refugees is being held up. What are the food needs on the ground in the West Bank, whether in Jenin or more broadly, and in the north of the West Bank, that you can talk about? Because we're trying to do everything we can to make people aware that this humanitarian food assistance is being held up, and we don't know why. It seems a pretty obvious thing to support. Maybe you can tell us about what those needs are like.
In terms of food, Mara. Okay. So, so far, I don't believe that there is such a need, urgent need or major need for food. As I said early, most of the community were really very supporters in terms of food baskets, providing food baskets. I think what's most important for people is to have a better economic situation. To have cash assistance. This is really most important for them. For those who lost their projects, their shops, their assets, their vehicles. We're talking about hundreds of vehicles that has been destroyed in the camp. I believe there are still majority of people who needs food subsidy or food support. But honestly speaking, what we saw and the support we saw from the surrounding community didn't list this as top priority for the community. But you never know. If we're talking about short term, then this might become a need in the coming future, especially if we didn't find other solutions to ensure income for those families. Those who lost, as I said, their livelihood, they require months and years to re-establish and build their businesses again. And I think those we need to consider and look at their needs in the coming few months. I believe the people until today are very busy with their homes, their belongings, the ones they lost, trying to reach the safe water, to make sure that their children and families are safe. And then would come, actually, they will realize later on the other needs that they don't think about for the time being. So I promise you there will be other urgent needs, other emerging needs. What's most important, as I said, for me, Mara, is to feel that for them, to feel that the international community is aware of what happened in Jenin. To feel that there is this kind of support for the refugees and their rights. When you speak to the children, they will tell you, I want to live like any other child in the world, safe. I want to be educated. I want to dream. I want to see myself achieving what I dreamt of. This is their very small dreams that that they. I want to walk in the street safe. I don't want to come to the school fearing that I will get a bullet. This is their dreams, Myra.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I believe يعني at the next stages, yes, we will talk more about other levels of needs.
Yes.
So we want
Yes.
to focus now on how to get them out from the rubbles, how to fix the streets, how to restore the networks, and makes them feel little bit safe and back to normal.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So people need the immediate rehabilitation needs, and then they need to be able to earn an income. Once they get back into their home, once they're able to go back to school, once they're able to access healthcare, what are those income generating opportunities that are going to enable them to feed their families for the long term? And we know, for example, in Gaza, obviously not where you're working, but where UNRWA works, that over 60% of the Palestine refugees there are reliant on UNRWA for food assistance. The conditions are much more difficult in Gaza in terms of food, and it's just a time, as we have listeners and viewers watching, that we make sure they understand that $75 million in food assistance support is being held up. $75 million that can support those who need food right now in Gaza and in the future in the West Bank. Let me, if you don't mind, Hanadi, turn to just a little bit of a different subject. We've dealt with some very heavy subjects so far, but something that I know you're proud of and that I was so keen to learn from you when I got to meet you in person outside of Kalkilia Hospital about a year ago, was that in 1996, UNRWA achieved gender parity among its employees. And Hanadi, I know that you have played a very powerful role in supporting women's employment at UNRWA. Maybe tell us a little bit about your own journey and how you've supported the role of women in UNRWA, and especially how that works in times of crisis.
Yeah. Actually, when I started my career in UNRWA as chief of area office, I know from then that I'm the first female actually who took this position. And I knew from the first day that the challenges will be really huge. And from there, يعني, I promised myself, and I'm working on it until now, to support every woman to achieve what she aspires. We started working slowly, شوي شوية, to support the women, in particular in putting the women in UNRWA in the senior positions. And this is really very important because you feel how important to have a female or gender, let's say, equity, because we can't say female, male. We're talking about gender equity. If you are a woman and you don't deserve what the post you are in, then it's not really gender equity. No, you need to work, you need to learn, you need to build your capacity, you need to believe in yourself and build this supportive environment around you. And honestly speaking, in a place like West Bank, it's not really easy to work with all the support that you expect. The family, the work environment, even the community. For community to see a woman in in certain positions is really not easy thing. It requires lots of work, Myra. From my side, we make sure whenever there is a chance for female candidates to take senior positions, we will go for it. But what's most important, also to support those women in their new positions. I think UNRWA understands how important to have women in different positions. It's very important to have women in the union. It's very important to have the women in decision making, because if you don't do that, you will lose half of the community, as you know. Recently, we managed to appoint new camp service officers. Let me speak about يعني a woman, a wonderful woman who's working in Jenin. She's Suhair. Her name is Suhair, and she's the camp service committee. In addition to tens of women, teachers, school principals, social workers, يعني work side by side with their colleagues to make sure that they commit themselves to the needs of the camp. So imagine if there are no women, Mara, in situation like Jenin, how you would understand the needs of women, how you will understand what does it mean to live this situation for a child, because either you are a mother, a sister, any level of relation you can think of. So يعني really big salute to our team in Jenin, men and women. I don't want men to hate me after this interview. Uh, so really, I'm really very how can I say lucky to have all these supportive people around me. I'm proud of my team, and I'm proud of being a member of UNRWA team, member of this organization that really deserve to be more seen and supported. So all the grades and the appreciation to our colleagues in Jenin and other parts of UNRWA. Also, just to add, يعني our top management, Mara, were really very supportive. The director, the deputies who happen to be also females, from the CG, from the deputy of the CG, at different levels. يعني I don't want to forget anyone. All the people at different levels were really very supported. My colleagues in the also the chiefs of programs, other chief of areas, my team in the area, they are all wonderful. I can just I wish I can name every and each one of them. But really, I don't want to forget any of them. But I mentioned Suhair in particular because she's a female who's working in a very difficult situation, like the situation in Jenin. So that's why I wanted to really mention her role as female.
Yes, absolutely. Given what's going on in Jenin, thank you, Suhair, and Hanadi. A shout out to your whole staff. The men and women I met were terrific, amazing, and it's clear that when I was there a year ago, the respect they have for you and your leadership. So mabruk, as you said, to all the men and women who are working right now in the West Bank and helping rehabilitate and rebuild Jenin. And actually, Hindi Mukhaiber says thank you, or Hind Mukhaiber says thank you, Hanadi, for the service. For your service to humanity. You're a treasure, and UNRWA is so lucky to have you. And just speaking of the amazing staff that you spoke about, and the work that so many at UNRWA are doing, particularly after, I mean, in daily life, but also the absolutely essential work after a raid like that we saw, a violent raid military raid into Jenin. What would life look like for Palestine refugees in the West Bank without UNRWA services?
I can't imagine it, Mara, honestly speaking. For the refugees, they look to UNRWA as if it is the mother of the refugees. يعني I can see it. يعني let me take the example of Jenin, for instance. There are so many service providers working currently in the camp. And I thank everyone, either the Palestinian Authority as service provider, the camp service committee, the community itself, each one, INGOs, UN agencies, they are all working inside the camp. But every time they refer to UNRWA. Yani, although they have all these people working inside the camp, but every time they would come and wait for UNRWA to support them, because they trust UNRWA. They trust that we will do whatever it takes to commit to our mandate, to provide the needed services, to protect the right of refugees. And I think this is something has been built for years now between UNRWA and the refugees. It's this kind of trust relation that we have with the refugee community, and this is something that you can't achieve if you don't have a wonderful team, wonderful management, committed people who are, most of them are refugees and live inside the camp, so they understand the context, if I may say. So I believe in any situation, even in the normal situation, Myra, people looks for UNRWA all the time. They have other services provided from different partners or service providers, as I said, but they always consider UNRWA number one service provider. And actually, they expect us to do. Yani, they know that this is our role. Yani, this is our mandate. And no matter crisis we go through, especially the financial crisis, every time they look forward to see us coming back to them and provide what we are expected to provide. So it's really a huge burden, to be honest, to have all this expectations, if I may say, and to have this trust with the agency. It really makes you feel, more committed, and we need to fight more until the issue of refugees is solved. We need to make sure that we still have this vision, and we remain the agency that actually protects and provides for the refugee communities wherever they are, not only in West Bank, in all our fields.
Thank you, Hanadi. And of course, UNRWA is there until there's a just and durable solution to the plight of Palestine refugees. So we hope that there is that just and durable solution, and that will be the day that UNRWA is no longer needed. And we all hope for that day. And just thinking about the future and hope, what gives you hope, Hanadi, right now for Palestine refugees in Jenin and the West Bank?
A smile in the face of a child. Why I'm saying that, Myra? Yesterday we had a delegation from USA, from the embassy, and we met a number of school children, female school children. They lost their one of the students, a friend of them, in the previous operation. And then they were just about to not forget, to survive the pain they lived, and they went through this operation. You can't imagine, Mara, how difficult to see all the faces of those students, how terrified. They were crying, all of them, they were crying. Seeing these faces, my hope is that I will be working just to draw a smile in the faces of these students. It's not easy. It makes you sometimes even frustrated, because I know that we can't fix everything. I know that there are things beyond our capacity, but as long as we believe, this is our role, and believe that of the right for those children and women to have their rights and live like others elsewhere, it gives me hope. When I see the people appreciate what we as UNRWA doing, I feel there is still hope. When we see children growing and becoming very significant persons in the community, I have this hope. They give me hope. When I see people traumatized that try to comfort me when I visit them, or I see them, or comfort the team that visiting them, then I feel there is a hope. The solidarity that we see from different people who visited the camp, it really gives me hope. There is still a positive thing in this whole world. that sees the rights of refugees and is willing to do whatever it within their capacities to support those people. So يعني this is how I see how I get hope, Mara. I think يعني if we don't have this hope, we will never be able to continue. What's happening is so much, but all the time we recharge, because we know that if we are not strong, then those who are we are serving will really be disappointed.
Hanadi, you have touched our hearts by all the words, all the powerful words you've shared with us today, the powerful descriptions, really understanding what the sentiment and is on the ground in Jenin, and our thoughts, our concern, and our support is with you, is for you. We want to do everything we can to get assistance there. And we know that everyone listening feels the same way. So thank you so much. I was going to ask you how we in the US, whether from the government or the people, can better support UNRWA's work. But I think your testimony here has told us what we need to do. Maybe I'll let you offer any other words of wisdom for us who are hearing from you really powerfully what has just taken place in Jenin.
No, I would say for the USA in particular, knowing how important the role of USA in our world, I think there is so much could be done in terms of advocacy. I know, or I heard that USA would be the chair of ATCOM, UNRWA ATCOM, for the coming period. So I hope that this will allow more support to UNRWA, if I may say, but also more understanding of the importance of finding some kind of political solution for the situation in the camps, and seeing what's going on in the camps in a different lenses, if I may say. So I hope this will be the case by USA at the official level. At the community or the people level, if I may say, I think you are doing a great job, Mara, you and your team. And I believe people of USA really understands what's going on. We are trying also to make sure that everyone in the world understands what's going on, and the tremendous need for advocacy and support for the refugees, whether in West Bank or elsewhere. It's not really fair for anyone to be a refugee, no matter what. We keep hearing this from the people in the camps. No, يعني we have the right like others, and I think everyone has the right to live in a decent place, dignity, and in a safe environment, to dream and to achieve their dreams. So I hope, Myra, by that people will really start how to support the dreams of the refugees in West Bank and other fields.
Wow, thank you, Hanadi. Thank you so much for taking the time today to update us on the situation in Jenin, and for telling us about the important role UNRWA plays in rehabilitating and rebuilding Jenin, and hopefully the lives of those who've experienced severe trauma, and we are waiting for many of those children to smile again. And Hanadi, I know you and your staff play such a big role in making that possible. So again, thank you. On behalf of the entire UNRWA USA team, a small but very sturdy and loyal group of supporters, we appreciate the time that you've taken to tell our listeners how they can better support Palestine refugees in Jenin. And we personally extend our gratitude and solidarity to you and to all of your staff on the ground. And on this note, I'd like to remind all of those watching to keep your eye on Palestine and its refugees, and continue to show your solidarity with Palestine refugees by supporting organizations like ours, UNRWA USA, and all of those who are working to support the rebuilding of Jenin. Once again, UNRWA USA's Urgent Assistance Fund will send your tax-deductible gift wherever Palestine refugees need it most. And right now, we will be sending a large disbursement to Jenin in the coming days. please consider giving a contribution today. Once again, my colleagues will share the link to donate on the screen now. And also, this is a reminder to follow UNRWA USA on our social media at UNRWA USA to stay up to date with our latest. And thank you, Hanadi, again for all you do. And thanks to all those tuned in. And thank you, Sylvie Schweig. I just saw you tune in. I know you. It's so wonderful to see you. Thank you, David, and all those listening. Shukran ktir. Hanadi, just wonderful to talk with you today. Thanks for shedding light on really the details, what we don't see so much in the States, but I know so many people care about deeply.
And thank you for your as well. Thank you very much.